And that can be a huge expense that you need to work out with your landlord. Bigger isn't always better. If you want to grow, you need the storage space. The failures and the things that I've seen go really wrong is I've seen a lot of cafes not even end up opening the doors because lifestyle choice for you as well. You're going to spend a lot of time in this location, and we really see some issues that can put projects on hold. Otherwise, you will have to spend more money on marketing. Location, location, location. Finding a spot for your new cafe, or maybe you found a spot and you're trying to work out if it's the right spot for your cafe. This is a tricky time because you're very excited. There's lots of new ideas. You just want to get in there and get stuck into it. But we need to make sure we're making good decisions long term so that your business can grow and thrive, and it can be the business that you want it to be. So let's talk through all the points that you need to be thinking about when choosing a location for your new cafe. Define your cafe concept and your goals. Let's talk about what the concept is. What is it going to be? Is it going to be a high-end seated restaurant? Is it going to be a grab-and-go takeaway coffee option? Are you going to be trying to serve 100 people? Do you want to do a more special option where you're doing smaller people, higher ticket price, all those kind of things? So the concept of your cafe and the vision that you have is really important to get in early. We're going to need that to choose the right location for your concept, and then also set your goals. Where do you want to be in 3 years' time? Whether that's revenue, whether that's staffing wise and foot traffic, how many people do you really need to be coming through this business to make it viable? So start mapping that out now. Map out your goals, map out your true concept of what you want to do. Let's identify your target market. Is this target market who you personally want to go for? Are you choosing a location in an area that you know the people, you have a relationship and you have a community there already? Or do you need to pick a location that's based on the type of demographic that you're going to be going for? Whether that's how much they earn or their lifestyle. We need to be thinking about the customers and who they are and what demographics they are. Who are you going to be attracting, and are they in the area to be able to get those new customers? Are those customers willing to sit down and have a higher spend per head, or are you looking at customers that are on the go, running past, wanting to grab a quick coffee option? Are they willing to pay a little bit more for a specialty coffee option, or are you in an area that is not prepared to pay that extra ticket price to get the better quality product, and your original goal and vision might not align with the biggest demographic in the area to get their business? The best results I've seen is when people do their due diligence and they go and do some market research. Researching existing coffee shops is a big part of it, and my suggestion, do it now while they don't know who you are. Go sit in the cafes before you own a cafe, because once you own a cafe, you're not going to go do it. They'll know who you are, they know what you're doing. You're also getting an insight into what those cafes do well, and maybe what their weaknesses are and what the opportunities are that you would be able to capitalize on in your cafe. We don't necessarily want you just doing the same thing as other cafes, but maybe if you are, maybe you could do it better. And now's the time to work out to what level that is and where you need to be above that. You need to make sure there's demand for your cafe. If there's heaps of cafes in your area already doing toasted sandwiches and takeaway coffee, is it that exciting that you're opening? Or do you have another angle that the new customers are going to be excited about, and you're going to be able to attract them to your cafe away from the other cafes? What's the foot traffic like? Foot traffic is the amount of people passing the cafe just on the daily commute, whether they're walking to work, walking to school. And this can be things like looking for schools that are local, preschools, how many people are just generally around the area. You will naturally get those customers. You will naturally get a small percentage of those customers to come in because they're already in the area. Attracting people to you is a different side of the business. We want to make sure that there's some foot traffic. This can be an extra cost, but it can also align with your timeline of how busy you need to be. Can also be dependent on how many people can learn about you quickly and learn about you because they're already seeing you on their daily commute. So foot traffic's really important. It can be you just sitting out the front and counting people. It can be a really helpful exercise. Same as visibility. Are you hidden down an alley? Are you on a main road? Are people seeing you as they drive past? And so your visibility to just general people moving past. We want to make sure that they can see you. Otherwise, you will have to spend more money on marketing. You will have to find other ways to get people to know that you're there. So you might be paying a little bit more for the location, but that might mean that you're reducing your marketing costs as you grow. Accessibility in parking is a really big one. I think small takeaway coffee shops really struggle if they don't have a good parking situation for customers to be able to quickly pull up and grab their coffee and go. If they have to park up the road, it can be the reason they won't actually come to you. So find out if there's a good amount of parking. If you have any reserved spots, amazing. If you have your own car park. But parking accessibility is a huge part of just the customer experience, making sure they're going to want to come to you because they know they can always get a park. Size and layout. Consider the size. Going back to your concept, how many seats do you need? Do you need that much room? It's actually sometimes the opposite scenario that I come across, where people think that having the space is going to be a good thing for them. Yes, if you want to grow, if you think your menu is going to be to the degree that you need a full house, you need 100 seats, but if it's not, a big empty cafe is not going to help you. You're also going to add extra costs to furniture, to staff. If your location has different rooms, you have staffing issues because you're going to need multiple staff in different spaces, and that's a real consideration. If your goal isn't to have a lot of staff and you want to be able to run it yourself, a smaller space might be best for you. So obviously you would then be reducing your menu options and your potential revenue, but bigger isn't always better, but it totally depends on the concept that you've put in place. And that comes to behind the scenes as well. Is the kitchen big enough to suit the cafe and the amount of seats? Can you hire multiple chefs? Can you have a lot of people to cook the amount of food? It can be hard if you pick a location. It's definitely hard to pick a location that doesn't have a kitchen already. There's a whole nother range of challenges with that. So finding a spot with a big enough kitchen is a great option. And then storage. If you want to grow, you need the storage space. 4 square meters of storage doesn't seem like much, but once you grow and you need multiple cups, boxes of cups for coffee and all the other stock, bags of coffee, there's kilos there to be stored. You're going to need some storage space. So always check for storage, make sure there's plenty of it, and that's going to be something that's going to help you in the future grow into it. But straight away, you'll be amazed by the amount of storage space that you'll actually end up taking up. So we have to talk rental costs and what it's worth to go into that space. Everywhere is different. Obviously, location based, we're talking about what the area is worth, what the rental is worth. But again, you've got to weigh that up against your potential revenue and going back to the concept that you've got. If you've got a lease in front of you, I highly recommend getting a professional to look at every lease. This will be money well spent. The failures and the things that I've seen go really wrong is when the lease hasn't been looked through. It either inhibits your growth and you can't actually make changes to the building, or it's going to cost you to make the renovations required to grow. This is probably the biggest point for me. Please make sure you have a solicitor look over your lease. They will be the one that will probably bring you back down to earth when it comes to the excitement of finding a location, or maybe you found a location and you're thinking, geez, a cafe would go well here. And it might be a good idea until they point out something in the lease that isn't great. So making sure you've got a good lease, a good landlord that's willing to work with you, because this is probably the biggest challenge I've seen in all cafes. I've seen a lot of cafes not even end up opening the doors because the lease actually ended up being not what they thought it was, and they just didn't give it the time of day to look through it all properly. So big point for me. Staying on costs. What does it take to power the building? Electricity wise, you've got to think about again, your menu and what your offering is. So then you can start to think about your operational costs, like your water, your power, your waste. Is there going to be local council services that you're paying for? So start a budget, start a spreadsheet, and start to build a list of all the different costs that you could potentially incur, and have someone look at this as well to make sure that you're not underestimating your expenses when you're going into this new venture. Now, there is plenty of boring things about finding a new space, and that's got to be like councils and permits and everything else that's needed to legally get you up and running. And much like the bad lease scenario, this is the part where I see the process really slow down and we really see some issues that can put projects on hold. A lot of the time you have to take on a lease to be able to look at making changes, and then those changes can't happen. So let's make sure that you reach out to council, make sure you get all of the paperwork you need, the zoning, the permits, everything you need early on to make sure that it is going to give you the outcome you're looking for. This is really important. If you've just found a hole in the wall or an empty space, maybe it's a retail shop and you think it's a great location for a cafe, but you have to do a lot of work to get it to that point. That is a very different scenario to taking on an existing cafe. If you take on an existing cafe, let's make sure that all of the things are legit in the first place, because to be honest, not every cafe is set up properly to spec as per the time that you're taking it on. So make sure that everything that's in there is as it should be, and then think about what it's going to take to get it to the point. If you're taking on an empty space, there's a lot of work there, there's a lot of permits, and we want to make sure that you are able to achieve what you want. Grease traps is probably a big stopper for a lot of accounts. You have to have a grease trap for a certain amount of food and a certain menu and how you're cooking your food, and that can be a huge expense that you need to work out with your landlord if that's your expense or theirs, and they're willing to put some money into the project. Let's make sure you get good advice. That is one reason that people come to us, because they talk about coffee in that advice, but you're talking about a building, talking about a lease, talking about years and incomes and all these different things. So talk to the real estate, get great advice from them, any other consultants that you can speak to. It might be a small amount of money now compared to the cost of rebuilding later or renegotiating later, or if it inhibits the growth that you anticipate, then finding that out now and getting that good advice early is really important. And don't be afraid to negotiate. Negotiations are part of the job. You need to talk to the real estate and see what you can do, see what they're willing to pay for, see if the landlord will put the grease trap in for you, or see if there's a bit of room to move. Maybe it's an option thing. Maybe you're not willing to commit to 5 years, but you could look at a 3x3. There is pros and cons of having long leases. If you're going to commit to a building for a long amount of time, you'll be more likely to invest some money into it and make sure it runs as you want it to in your cafe. But I wouldn't be game to spend any money on the location without a good long-term lease. So that's something you need to negotiate on, and now's the time to do it. So what would I do if I was looking for a location? Right now, I would be doing the market research. I'd be driving around, I'd be getting a vibe for the community, I'd be getting a vibe for the spaces, just the general towns that you want to work in. You got to think about this. This is a personal lifestyle choice for you as well. You're going to spend a lot of time in this location, and we want to make sure that you are happy to drive to that area. Yes, we need to make money. Yes, we want the cafe to be successful, and you can run a business off the back of that. You can run a business based on a good location that's going to have high foot traffic and create the revenue and the income that you want, and that's great. But I think a lot of people are very tied into their cafes, and I want them to enjoy the lifestyle of it. If you're lucky enough to choose a beautiful location, I mean, I'm in Rattle Restaurant in Emerald Beach right now. It's a stunning location, and it is a choice that they made because they know that they will be able to do the service they want. They can offer the specialty coffee, and they've said to me some of the things that they loved about this location was it's north facing, getting some sun on the building in the mornings and looking over the ocean is amazing. Sure, they probably pay a bit more for the location, but it's going to give the experience to the customer that they were after. Now, this is also the experience for you, it's the experience for the staff. So like I said, go sit in cafes, find the area that you like, and start to work backwards from there. I'd also start looking at real estate websites, see what's available, see if you've got an opportunity to buy an existing business. This is less exciting for people, I think, to look at existing cafes and taking that on, but it could be a great entry point to be able to see a functioning business, be able to look at the reporting, have a look at what the numbers are, find out what they're currently trading. You could do this exercise and find out what a cafe is doing, a business that's for sale. I'd find out what it's doing, find out what its numbers are like, and even if that's not the one you take on, you'll have an idea of what the area is like and what a general cafe sale could potentially look like. So I would do your research on cafes that are for sale, have a look at the spaces, reach out to real estates, and start to connect with people in that business. There is also cafe brokers. So not every cafe is listed online. You might not be able to see it on realestate.com, but you might find that if you reach out to a broker and let them know that you're in the market, they will have quiet sales happening in the background that you don't know about, and that don't need to be public, but there is opportunities to find some great options that are out there, but they're not necessarily listed publicly yet. Some simple tools you can use Google Maps, use the local directories, find out how many cafes are built up in the area, look at their websites, go through their menus, and just do your online research. Definitely sit in the cafes, but I would use the tools and find out what the offering is in the area and what the opportunity potentially is for that area. And start talking to people. If you're in the market, you could be talking to cafe owners. You'd be surprised the amount of cafe owners that are willing to talk to you and wanting to share their thoughts and give you their insights. So start to connect with people and find out. If you're already working in a cafe, you can talk to other baristas, other owners, and find out if it's a viable business option for you. This is a big decision for you. This could be your life for a number of years now, so let's make sure we make the right choice. The location that you choose could make or break your business. So let's make sure we've done our due diligence. Don't get too caught up in it all. Make sure you give yourself a long enough timeline. If you're rushing into this, you'll make choices that will be probably detrimental to the business long term, and you just need to give yourself a little bit of space so you can make a good decision. So these are my helpful tips just to choose a location, or if you've got a location, is it the right one for you? Have you got any other tips for us? Do you want to put them in the comments below to share them with the community? Help people make good choices for their new cafe location? Put them in the comments. If you like the video, hit the like button and the bell icon. Subscribe to the channel. This channel is all about supporting business owners for cafes and baristas, how to make great coffee. So follow along, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.